Hello everybody and welcome to technically episode 5 of POE Dad. This video is going to be much different than all the other ones. It's going to be a lot, hopefully, not too boring of a talkathon as I kind of explain all the shit that I've been doing for the past week or so. And also, I wanted to use this time to explain why I struggle with POE Dad and why it's like really difficult to make this content, especially to make it relatable over the course of this episode. So I won't bore you with just talking, and I'll give you some clips to look at while I chat through what I've been doing. Alright, I'm going to try my best not to ramble, but there is a lot to get through, so let's get started. This is the build I decided to go after Toxic Rain. This is Abyss Stacking Light Poacher EK Raider. Raider is because I didn't want to re-level, I didn't have the resources to re-level, etc, etc. And the build itself actually is super good. It was way better than I expected, and I honestly picked this build because it covered the 3 core tenets of what I wanted at the time in a build. One, it needed to do everything I said build needed to do before. Handle a bunch of map content, do it fast, do it well, so on and so forth. The second thing is it has a lot of crafted gear. So having a lot of crafted gear is not usually what most people think about when they look at a build. They just kind of want to blast, but we don't have the opportunity to blast for very long. So instead, we need to think about elevating everything we do to make profit. And crafting is the best way to do that. So because a lot of our gear is crafted and self-made, it's worth significantly more than what we spent on making it, which is totally fair because we spent the time to make it. And because of that, since we're going to put together the build anyway, spending an extra 5-10% time crafting the gear versus just purchasing it was well worth that effort. And last, the build needed to be different. And the reason it needs to be different isn't because meta is bad. I think meta skills are great, but it needs to be different because we need to be able to corner a market. There's going to be a lot of gear that's worth so much more that people don't know or don't care about. Because of that, we can snipe, in air quotes, like gear for cheap and be able to value them higher because, well, they are truly worth more than what people put them up for. So we were able to snipe good pieces of gear for relatively cheap, craft gear for relatively cheap, and then we can elevate our build value. And just like I did with TR, which I think I put maybe like, 10 divines into the build and we sold it for 29, because of build value, we're able to elevate and make more currency. So I think now is when you can take a look at some gameplay, and it's honestly, obviously, as you see here, it's pretty solid. And as this gameplay goes on, and I wanted to chat a little bit about what I ended up selling it for. I think I sold it for 120 to 140 div, somewhere in there. And obviously that's a lot of profit. And there's going to be people who wonder if this is fair, what's going on. And I can put the POB, you guys can look in the description. Obviously the way I made the build is very different than how some other people make it. I liked the idea of spirit charges augmenting my mapping, and some people don't. Some people really do not like that. So obviously that's going to be up to you. The way I made it, it was about 140 div of value. And yeah, so let's kind of move on to the next topic now. All right, so this part of the video is probably going to be a little bit boring, and it's just going to be my build, my thought processes for what's happening, and as well as some updates on POE Dad in general. So the first things first is the build. The build is Palsteron's style of strength stacking shockwave static strike, and I made this build because it got recommended to me on YouTube, and I thought that's not enough area of effect. So I've gone for the double area of effect mod on the boom mace, as well as some other area effect and elsewhere, and it's really not even noticeable compared to Palsteron. So I messed up a little bit. But other than that, the build is really good. I did sink about 140 divines into it because some other stuff had sold. And the only thing I don't have here is the level 4 Enlighten, which I can put in if that's necessary. I have both Synth Strength Rings and I have Synth Strength Amulet, and these are all really well crafted and so on and so forth. And I think this build satisfies, once again, the 3 core tenets of making a build. Is it a good build? Yes, it's a good build. The build handles a lot of content really, really well, and I'll show gameplay in a little bit about the content. And 2, is it a unique and interesting build? Yes, it's not super popular, so the market is still semi-cornerable for a lot of the items. And last but not least, is it a build with a lot of crafting? Yes, it is. It's got 3 synth items, it's got a really complex weapon, and it's got a complex helm and a complex synth belt, which makes this build really, really cool. It also has the added bonus of needing to craft clusters, and these clusters are incredibly expensive. I have an insane cluster. This is probably worth 70 or so divines, and I self-made that cluster, right? So I was able to elevate the build value immensely. And I think the total build value currently with all my gear equipped, I'm not going to go through all of it because that's boring as hell, is probably around 350 to 400 divines, which is pretty nuts, given that we spent probably 150 divines on it. And now let's talk a little bit about POE Dad. All right, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. And I'm going to try to do this without making too many excuses, but bear with me here. Why have there been no POE Dad episodes recently? There's a short answer and there's a long answer. The short answer is life got busy. And that short answer is also an excuse. It's an excuse that a lot of people give, and I'm pretty sure if I just said that, nobody would ask questions. But I feel like I'm better than that. Life did get busy, and I was finding myself having less time playing video games and editing and just free time in general, but I still had time. I had plenty of time to make a video every day. Obviously, there was no onus for how long the video had to be or how complex it had to be. I very much had the ability to cobble up the clips together, do a few takes, structure out some basic storylines, and make it happen. And I didn't. So then why? And I think the complexity of it is lost on a lot of people. And you can totally skip this part. I'll put a timestamp in the video for those who don't want to listen to this. But it kind of goes like this. I am trying to make a PoE series that is structured around people who don't have a lot of time to play. And I want to show them that it's possible to make a lot of money while not playing very much. Okay, it seems very reasonable. Then, the content needs to be educational, which it already is because of the video series style, but it also needs to be entertaining, it needs to be diverse, and most importantly, it needs to be accessible. Because what's the point of telling people you can do something if they can't do it? And as we get higher and higher in currency, that accessibility and that engagement and diversity portion of this whole series gets completely fucked. And it kind of goes along the lines of, we don't have much time to play, so there are a very limited number of strategies in which we can make a lot of money in the first place. We're pigeonholed into those things. And they are complex. And it's not good to tell people that, hey, you should go do build flipping, when the prerequisite to doing that is being able to craft all this gear, knowing and understanding build mechanics, understanding POB, and having enough game knowledge to understand what content everything and every style of build can do. And then there's the whole like, well, then you're not really playing an hour into 2 a day because you're doing POB work for like 2 hours, right? Like one of the days for my EK build, I was just doing POB for 2 hours. Then there's the, when does the series end? And I think the series should end at a mirror, 2 mirrors, but then it makes the next couple videos a little bit obfuscated and perhaps a little bit boring, because there's very many ways to get from 1 divine to 10 divines, and quite a few ways from 10 divines to 100 divines, and there are significantly less entertaining and nuanced ways to get from 100 divines to 1,000 divines. And I think we're starting to see that now. And I'm trying to do this in the way that is most entertaining, but obviously that is going to be a huge struggle as time comes. There won't be a complex outro section for today's video. I just wanted to spend this time to, really buckle down and talk to you guys. I want to hear your comments on what you think the series should be like. You guys have an important voice, and if you guys made it here especially, please talk to me, talk to everybody. I want to see, and I hope to see, some level of real discussion. And I'll see you guys next time.